Hey, somebody's got to find my sombrero. You did? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer.
All right, Arnsty, how you keep getting in and out of here?
Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth.
Figaro, 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 Figaro.
With actual listeners in more than 100 countries, I am the Professional Noticer.
Do you really not know? Because it is a big deal.
Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. This is going to be a great one. As the Professional Noticer, it's my job to professionally notice something for you, and nothing's off limits. So what's your question? Got some in business, a spiritual issue, maybe popular culture? We even tackle odd conundrums, like, can a guy named Nick have a nickname? Look, my purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life you would live if all your toughest questions were answered. Our sponsor this week is the Andy Andrews Blue Plate Special. Lunchtime learning and laughter. You guys, we are having a blast on 12:15 Central Time, just a couple or 3 days a week. We don't even know when it's going to be. We just kind of tell you the day before. But it's coming out live, and it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram and Twitter, and we go live 12:15 on Central Time. It's just go on Facebook and click your notification, and if you you click that notification thing when we go live, it'll tell you. It'll like track you down. It'll find you. If you're asleep, it'll wake you up. I think. I don't know. But anyway, click that notification and join us. We're having just a good time, just 30 or 40 minutes, and we're having some guests occasionally, but we're talking, man. We're talking about some crazy stuff and fun stuff and laughing a lot. This is the Andy Andrews Blue Plate Special, lunchtime learning and laughter. So, observations and answers are what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And sometimes we can find somebody who is able to notice things in a way that other people aren't. And man, if we can get these kind of people on this show, and we have one today. We have one. It is actually a person that I admire so much. It's hard to kind of put it in words, because this is a guy who I have watched for a number of years come up in the business of writing and speaking, communicating, helping people. And he has a new book that's coming out, and I just I begged him. I said, look, we don't even do interviews. And I said, please come on and just talk to us a little while. I want to let you know before I introduce him that this is, I would bet that John is he's certainly in the top 3 most demand speakers in America now. He has a story that will blow your mind, and I want to get him to tell a little bit of it in a minute. But the book coming out is released May 5th by Random House, Penguin Random House, May 5th, and it's called In Awe. Rediscover your childlike wonder to unleash inspiration, meaning, and joy. And we have the author with us today, John O'Leary. John, thank you for being here.
Andy Andrews, you are my role model, man. When I grow up, I hope I sit in your shadow. And it is really an honor to be introduced as a friend by you.
Dude, I have, you are probably number 1 on my list of people that I like the most and get to see the least. There's a matrix that crosses there. I am fascinated by you. I'm fascinated by your work, your family, and And so, if you don't mind, I'm sure that a lot of people in your audience have no clue who I am. And I'm sure there's got to be somebody in my audience that doesn't know your story. But, at one point in your life, you were given a 1% chance to live. Now, this is kind of a curious statistic in the middle of a pandemic when we're hearing about, 1 and 2% death rate, and nobody ever says anything about a 98% survival rate. And so, but you were given a 1% chance to live when you're 9 years old. Tell us what happened.
So at age 9, I, as a curious little fellow, walked into my mom and dad's garage. I had witnessed, Andy, a week earlier, old boys in my neighborhood. These are like 11 and 12-year-olds, man. So super sophisticated, and they were playing with fire and gasoline. Wow. And I watch these little kids, man, I'm looking over their shoulder, and it's monkey see, monkey do up in the Midwest and really around the world. And I'm a noticer. So I'm noticing what they're doing. And I figure if they can do it, so can I. So on a Saturday morning, January 17, 1987, I walked into my mom and dad's garage. One was at work, one was running errands with a couple daughters. The house was mine, bent over a can of gasoline. It's 5 gallons, filled to the brim. Tried to pour a little bit of gasoline on top of a burning piece of paper. And Andy, before the liquid even came out of the container, the fumes pulled that little flame up and in, created this massive explosion that launches 9-year-old John O'Leary 20 feet against the far side of the garage. And man, it set my world on fire. So that is the beginning of this epic journey, first toward death, man, because it was a death sentence, 100% burn, 87% third degree. Seemingly,
now, John, I want to stop you right there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but as people are listening to this, I want you to just take a note or something. But John's first book was called On Fire, and which we can kind of tease him about it, but this book, you have to get it. You have to get it. You don't have to read it before you read In Awe, but you have to get this. And so this tells some of that story, and it has several meanings. But keep going. Keep going.
Well, man, 100% burn. The way they do the math today, Andy, is they take the percentage of your body burned. So at home, do the math with me. Okay, grab your crayons. Here we go. 100%, add age, 9, and you got mortality. So for me, if I had had this occur in 2020, I would have had 109% likelihood of dying. So that stat you shared on the front side of the conversation, Andy, that's what they told my mom was the likelihood of me surviving the first day. And then they said, and Mrs. O'Leary, those odds will never, ever go up in time. What they were trying to do is to soften my mother's heart, to let her know that there's really no reason for hope. And yet my mother refused to let go of hope. And my father refused to let go of his faithfulness. And our community refused to believe that there wasn't a reason to fight forward through the storm. And
your community believed that. And you lived in St. Louis, right?
I did, but it's important to recognize our community quickly moved past the Mississippi River and past state lines and past national boundaries, man. It became a global phenomena. We had President Reagan writing letters to our family that he and his wife Nancy were praying. We had people in Israel planting trees on our behalf. We had a guy named Pope John Paul II writing letters saying he was praying for our family. And so the reason I love my story, Andy, and I've shared it a couple thousand times live in front of a couple million people, is because it has nothing to do with the guy sharing it. I am the noticer, to use your language. I was the one who received this care. I was the one who received the love and the grace and the kindness of individuals in the hospital and around the world coming alongside a little boy with no chance saying, yes, you do. Fight for it. Left foot goes in front of the right. And through their help, a little boy with no chance goes on to survive the unsurvivable.
Okay, but John, go back to the first 24 hours. The first 24 hours, obviously you don't remember anything of that, do you? Or is it something that you have been told? What happened in that first 24 hours? What were your parents doing?
So, man, the cool thing about my life is that what I share is what I remember. And it has
Right.
been backed up by mom and dad as being 100% accurate. And some people challenge that. Like, do you really remember the can blowing up? Do you really remember your brother saving your life? Do you really remember your sister saying those words to have faith and fight? And the answer is absolutely. So the first 24 hours are mine. It gets foggier after that, but those are
Okay,
mine.
stop again. I got to just tell you. I want to say, do people really come up to you and challenge that?
Well, I think they are overcome with emotion when they hear this story. And because it's too good to be true in some regards, it's bigger than life, that they think, certainly, this is either exaggerating or it's, that fish you caught last weekend, it just gets bigger and bigger every day. The amazing thing about the fish we caught 33 years ago is it's not getting bigger. It is the same amazing, amazing fish that we caught 33 years ago. We've been telling the story since then, and we continue to tell it today. And so, yeah, people.
Yeah, I've heard. And that's it blows my mind. And so that's good. That helps me that you explained that. They're not. I don't know. I for a minute there, I want to go beat somebody up for calling you a liar, but it's they're wanting that hope so much that they can't believe that this could really happen, and it really did. This is so. Keep going. I'm sorry to keep interrupting, and tell me to shut up if you need to.
I don't. I love it. And I think the questions are a form of curiosity. So anytime someone says, did that really happen? I view that as an invitation to join closer in a relationship. So questions have never, ever bothered me. Even when a little kid, yesterday in my front walk, this little 4-year-old comes over, a neighbor girl, and says, "What's wrong with your hands, mister?" And for the listeners, you may not know this, but Mr. O'Leary had his fingers amputated in the hospital. So my hands look different. My arms are burned. I am not who she's used to seeing every single day. The summer sunshine is just beginning to blossom here in the Midwest. And so I had short sleeves on, maybe for the first time in her childhood memory. So she's just curious. That doesn't bother me, man. It's an opportunity to come together as a family. So
that's hilarious. We got a friend who's a bow tech, he's an archery guy, and he has one leg. And we were up at the bow shop one day, and some little kid was with his parents, and the parents were horrified, but we just fell out because the kid's like 5, and he's looking under the table, and he sees Chris's leg, and he says, "Where did your leg go?" And Chris says, "I lost it." He said, "Where did you lose it?" And then Chris just kind of laughed, and the kid said, "Are you a pirate?"
That's so awesome. See, and we adults, and that's part of the book and all, but we adults are mortified when a conversation.
Mortified.
But with a little bit of grace, it's not something to run from. It's something to embrace. And you asked also about my mom and dad during those first 24 hours, Andy. And the coolest thing for me is they were there. They weren't there during the explosion. They weren't there for the first hour afterwards. But as soon as the calls went out, they were the first ones into the emergency room. And as a 9-year-old, not much older than that little kid talking about the pirate, as a 9-year-old, the thought I had more clearly than any other that morning was the thought of, when my dad finds out, my father will kill me. My father will absolutely freak out. He's going to lose it on me, man. I burnt down the house. I ruined the garage. I went against his will, and I burned myself up. And so I hear his footsteps down the hall, and then I hear his voice say, "Where is my boy John? Where is my boy John?" And I'm in the back.
You're like, "Don't tell him. Don't tell him."
Dude, totally. I hope he doesn't find me, man. But they find me. They bring him back. He pulls back the curtain, walks over, points down, and says, "John, look at me when I'm talking to you." So, dude, I'm busted. I look up at my dad, and then he goes, "I have never been so proud of anyone in my entire life. And my little buddy today, this morning, man, I am proud to be your dad." And then he says, "I love you. I love you. And I love you." And as a 9-year-old, this isn't making sense. I remember shutting those eyes, Andy, and thinking, oh my gosh, nobody told my dad what happened, man. Like, he doesn't know. He doesn't know I'm the one that burnt down that house. I'm the one that caused these scars, man. I'm the one that ruined this day. And yet what he is showing that day is grace. It's unconditional love. And I think we need it when we get burned bad in a childhood fire. I am sure, though, we need it in the midst of a pandemic. We need it when we disagree with someone politically or religiously or in their opinion on the way we're going through our life, or the way we're tracking forward. We need not less grace. We need a lot more of it. And my dad is exhibit A of it in my life. And so he was the first one to enter into that room, Andy, and paint a picture of what remained possible going forward.
Wow. And so do you mind? I would love for you. I want to get to this new book, but I would love for you to tell a little bit about Jack Buck coming into your hospital room and how that all occurred. Because you're right, the world was finding out about this. I mean, this was one of these things before the internet that tragic accident went viral without an internet. I mean, the Pope, Reagan, and you're in the St. Louis area, and Jack Buck talks about you on the radio, then comes to the hospital, right?
It's just such a beautiful story. Like, I pinch myself sometimes thinking that I was somehow part of this. Like, not it. I'm not Jack Buck. I just somehow have been fortunate to be in a position in life to receive such love from others. So one of the love stories I received at age 9 in the hospital the following day after being burned. So now it's Sunday morning. I'm laying in the hospital bed, and some of your listeners may not know the name Jack Buck, but Joe Buck, the big football and radio announcer, the big television guy, and he calls the World Series 26 consecutive years. This year, God willing, he'll call 27 consecutive World Series.
Well, yeah, but it's his daddy's in the Hall of Fame, right?
His daddy is in the Hall of Fame. His daddy is the one that I grew up listening to, and his daddy's the one that I loved. I love Joe. I really respect him, but I loved his father. I grew up listening to that voice, and now I'm burned in a hospital bed. Andy, I'm dying, man. There's no reason for hope. And I just need y'all to understand, when you hear like that, give up on this country, give up on your dream, give up on your marriage, give up on your health, give up on the diagnosis. You need to hear this story. Yeah. So Jack Buck learns on Saturday night that a little boy has been burned to an inch of his life. And rather than just giving up on him, the following day, he shows up in my hospital room. I can't open up my eyes to see him because they're burned so bad. I can't open any part of my body up because I'm tied down to a bed, and I can't communicate with my mouth because there's a trach cut into my neck. And so I can't do anything but listen. And I hear him walk in. I don't know who it is. I hear a chair come across the floor. And then on a Sunday morning, I hear the voice of the Hall of Fame radio announcer, Jack Buck, say to me, "Kid, wake up, man. Wake up. You are going to live. You are going to survive. Keep fighting. John O'Leary Day at the ballpark will make it all worthwhile." And then there's a pause. I don't know if he left or what. And then he goes, "Kid, are you listening?" And I try to nod my head, and then he goes, "Keep fighting." And he walks out. He leans his head against a glass wall. He just starts weeping. One of the nurses walks over and says, "Mr. Buck, are you all right?" And he says, "I'm not sure that little boy won't make it, will he?" And the nurse, without any doubt, says, "Mr. Buck, there is absolutely not a chance." And he takes home this diagnosis, this hopelessness. What do you do when you get that diagnosis? Because we've all got it, man. We got it right now in our country. The economy's in shambles. Your life is a wreck. More at 10. When you get that diagnosis, what you choose to listen to, who you choose to tune into, the questions you choose to ask, and the mindset with which you ask them will inform indeed what happens next. The future's not yet written. What Jack does is he takes it home, he cries, he prays, he reflects, and he journals on the one question: what more can I do? It's a question he asked every night of his life. What more can I do? What more can I do to make tomorrow better than today? And sometimes that's about being an announcer, or being a father, or being a husband, or going through an addiction, whatever it might be. But every night, what more can I do? The following day, it's now Monday morning in St. Louis, Missouri. There's a little boy named John O'Leary who barely hung on through that first night, laying on a hospital bed. He's dying again. And the door opens up. Footsteps walk in, chair gets dragged across the floor, and then I hear the voice of Jack Buck say, "Kid, wake up. I'm back." And Andy, we could take this story and make it a 4-hour podcast, because that's how long it would take to tell it right. But this guy comes into my life every day over the next 5 months and keeps encouraging. And
every day?
every day.
For
And when
5 months.
when he was out of town, because there's something called spring training for
Sure,
baseball,
sure.
it's still being broadcast. So he would talk about it then on the radio every day for the players who were sick. A guy named Andy Van Slyke was a great ball player back in the
Yep.
80s and 90s. He was injured during this time, and so he was then forced probably by Jack Buck to visit. Jack encouraged other sports teams to show up. We had a team called the St. Louis Football Cardinals. So Jack somehow weaseled his way into that team and encouraged those guys. There was a guy you may remember as an Alabama guy, Gene Stallings. He was the coach. Gene Stallings is the coach of the football Cardinals, man. Gene had a heart for kids.
Yeah, he did.
And for those of you who don't know that story, man, you read about Gene Stallings, you'll read about a phenomenal man. John Mark was his son, I believe.
John Mark, his son, yep.
And somehow during this pandemic, man, in my own life, Gene Stallings steps into the darkness, and now he's guiding forward this little boy, and hockey players are coming around this little boy. And it's just the story that is not tragic. It's triumphant. And even the story being told today in 2020, if you watch the news every night, you will be certain it's a story of tragedy. And if that's the story you want to watch, man, have at it. Your social media feed will back you up on how cruddy your life is. But there is indeed another story being told. By the hands, by the feet, by the lice, by the nurses, by the custodians, by the boys stocking the shelves at the grocery stores, the ladies driving the trucks, the farmers growing the food, man. There's a story of love, redemptive love being told right now. And that's the story we got to tell. That's the story we got to live into. And I'm sick and tired. I'm sorry for the soapbox. I'm sick and tired of the world telling us how crappy things are. And don't say, well, John, it's a pandemic. Wrong. They were telling us before the pandemic how bad things are.
Absolutely.
2 years ago, man, Harvard did a study on media, and 94% of media back in 2018, when the world was good, when markets were at highs, when unemployment was at lows, 94% was negative. So, man, we need a different lens to perceive what has taken place around us. It's called the lens of truth. And maybe the best way to grasp it is to turn the media off, look outside, and watch, in your case, the palm trees blow. In my case, the magnolia trees bloom. Man, life is good. That doesn't mean it's perfect, not this side of eternity, but it is good. The foundation is firm, and the best is yet to come.
Man. All right, now, I got to go back just a second, because there's my favorite part of this. Jack Buck asking every night of himself, what else can I do? What more can I do? And so here you are, this kid, and you're coming out of it now, and it's apparent you're going to live, but you have no fingers. And so what did he do? Tell the story of what he did that encouraged you to learn how to write again.
All right. I mean,
this is one of my favorite stories of all time, anywhere, anybody.
Me too. And that's why a lot of times people introduce me as John, like the star, John the speaker, John the celebrity, John the overcomer. And they completely miss what took place there. Throughout all of John's broken life, even the publishers of our books frequently will begin by having a picture of me on the front of the cover. And I always send it back saying, you guys did not read what I wrote. The book is not my story. I happen to be writing this thing, but Andy, your language, I'm noticing. And I'm noticing with the great work being done in the communities, but I'm also noticing from the bedside. And in your specific question, I learned from the wheelchair. So Jack Buck promised me John O'Leary Day at the ballpark. He lived into that promise, picked me up at a Lincoln Town car, takes me downtown, August 26, 1987, rolls me around the stadium like a proud papa, introduces me to everybody and their mother, takes me upstairs, and throughout the entire experience, he notices this little boy can't do anything with his hands. Man, I can't sip a 32-ounce soda. I can't eat a hot dog. I can do nothing. And rather than just looking at a deformed, broken child and turning his back and saying, man, at least I did my part. I did my thing.
Listen to this.
He takes it home. He cries. He prays. He reflects. And he journals. Here's the question again, man. What more can I do? What more can I do to make tomorrow better than today? Guys, as you're hearing this story at home, in your marriage, in your singleness, with that addiction, in a financial crisis, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of a time when everybody else is building taller walls, what more can I do to ensure that our days collectively going forward are better than today? That's the question we ought to be asking now. Not what more can I do to trumpet how lousy this life is. What more can I do to make it better? Jack fought in World War II. He picked up a Purple Heart. He saw hardship, but he also saw overcoming. He was part of that greatest generation. So he takes home this question. And the following day, Andy, seeing a little boy without fingers, he drops off in my mailbox a little package. It's a brown box. Inside of it was a baseball signed by Ozzie Smith. I think Ozzie was born in Mobile, Alabama, another Alabama boy. Below that ball was a note from Jack that read, "Kid, if you want a second baseball, all you have to do is send a thank you letter to the man who signed the first." And for those at home, I'm holding these up to Andy right now. He and I are looking at each other on the screen, but I can't hold anything, man. Not a hot dog, not a soda pop. But dude, for the first time in my life, I wanted bad to hold something because I wanted to get a second baseball. My mom and dad had been bribing me saying, "Baby, when you learn how to write again, you get to go back to school." What they missed was I don't want to go back to school, man. Raw carrot.
I'll never learn to write.
It's too freaking hard, man. I can't. So I don't learn until I get a bribe worthy of chasing.
Yeah.
And I think that's, man, God. You could spend hours unpacking that, meeting people where they are, loving them where they are, give them something in their own life, not your life, in their life that is worthy of pursuing.
How many balls did you get?
Well, I started with one. It went into two, then three, and it ended up being 6D baseballs by the end of 1987, 6-0.
Tell us about the last ball Jack Buck gave you.
You've done your homework. So the last ball,
dude,
Jack Buck gave me,
you are a hero of mine. I just know all your stories.
Well, the hero's not me. That's why I love this story, and that's why, for those of us who understand true greatness, it ought not be the one in the mirror. It ought to be us reflecting the love we receive from those around us. We ought to be great, but we ought to never think that we're the example of greatness. We ought to just show up greatly in the lives of those that we can support through our efforts. So that's my job, and I've received well from the community, including Jack Buck, who on graduating from college. So John O'Leary somehow goes on to grade school and high school and college. Jack shows up graduation night with a package and a note. The words on the note, Andy, were, "Kid." He never, ever in his entire life called me John. "Kid, this means a lot to me. I hope it means a lot to you too. This is the baseball that I received when I went into the Hall of Fame. It's made of crystal. It is priceless. There's only one like it in the entire world, kid." And then he wrote, "Don't drop it."
Don't drop it.
I open this thing up, and inside, and it's almost impossible to use words to describe, but I'll try, is this see-through, it looks black because it's the bottom of it, the package was black, baseball. I pick it up with both hands. I hold it. It's hard. It's made out of crystal. On the front of it, it says Baseball Hall of Fame. Right below that, it says 1987. And right below that, it says Jack Buck. It's shaped like a baseball. It looks like a baseball, except it's this priceless heirloom that Joe Buck should have right now. Like this is the kind of thing when Andy, you're a speaker. If your boys go into it, they ought to have your trophies later on in life. Jack gives this away to a 22-year-old college drunk, self-conscious, shy, man, lacking confidence in life boy that can do nothing in return. I'm not going to become a speaker. I'm not going to become a great author. I'm not going to have a podcast. I'm never going to meet Andy Andrews. I'm going to kind of quietly do my own thing in life. That's my dream. And yet this guy saw so much more in me. Honestly, it blows me away still.
Well, you have, I know that Jack must be looking down very proud of you today. He's proud of his son. He's proud of you. And I listen, and our guys, the people who listen to the Professional Noticer, I really want you to make sure that you subscribe to John's podcast. It's Live Inspired. It's a Live Inspired podcast with John O'Leary. And you go to John O'Leary Inspired. Isn't that right? JohnO'LearyInspired.com. And
John O'Leary Inspires. Yeah.
Yeah. JohnO'LearyInspires.com. I've been there so many times. And you can also, this is just kind of on the side, but you can also see a picture of the garage after it was burned. So
the whole Rolodex, man. So For me, the most shocking photo is a picture, two of them. One is emergency room day one. And you have to kind of click around a little bit to find it because we don't want people to stumble on it by accident. But man, when you see what my mom and dad walked into, it makes what they did and the love they offered and the courage they showed even more powerful. I got a 9-year-old at home and I got a picture of her up on the wall, and the idea of seeing that, if you're not moved in that moment, it's only because you're not paying attention.
Right.
So that's a powerful picture. And the other one that is maybe even more exhaustingly powerful is the picture of that little boy taken 2 months later. So it's a picture of John post-burn day. PBD is what you see on the picture, because it's taken in a bandage change, and they're doing it for research because they still don't think this kid is going to survive. And to show this little guy, man, and what he's going through every day. And when I see it, it breaks my heart to think what that little kid goes through. But for me, what really gets me is thinking of that staff and the janitors and the CNAs and the nurses and the therapists who just keep showing up. And they just never gave up on him. It took them 5 months to send him home, but they just refused to give up on him. And right now, everybody's got these little signs in their front yard. Hey, thank a healthcare worker. Man, I've been thanking a healthcare worker way before COVID-19 started showing up in my life. And I think we ought to recognize their great heroic work long after COVID-19 is gone, because this thing will pass. It's going to go away. I don't know if it's this summer or in 18 months, but it will pass. Andy, you got a beautiful video on that. We've been through multiple pandemics, whole lots of recessions, 13 since 1940. We've been here before. The foundation is firm. So let's, when we come through it, not forget about the heroes who were here when we were struggling.
What now? What now? I think there's a lot of people, and you may disagree, but I think there's a lot of people that are just kind of sitting and waiting and bored and doing nothing and can't wait to get out because they think we're just going to start again. I think there's going to be some changes, but what can people do now to get ahead of the game so that when things are cranked up again, they're closer to the life they want to live anyway?
Right. So I'll give you 3 answers on that. Brief, hopefully, for all of them. Number one is when you return to the game, it's not going to be like when you were 11 years old and you played Monopoly with your buddies or your parents, and then you went for a bike ride, you had lunch, you came back after raking leaves, and the board's still set up, and the little shoes over there.
Yeah.
And, dude, you are coming back to a board that changed. I believe the board's about to get flipped. And so if you're just waiting for the storm to pass, and you don't know if it's this week or next month or maybe sometime in 2020, when you come back, that board's gone. It's still on the floor. You can still pick it back up. There's still the money. There's still the car. The iron's still there, the little puppy dog. I mean, you can get it back on the board. But if you think Park Place is still in your court, you're wrong. So number one, the world is changing. And the cool thing is we get to change. We don't have to. You can return to the board and be mad when you return to it looking different. So you don't have to change, but the world is. So that's one piece.
All right, wait, before you go on, there is a quote that you made. I wrote this down, and I love this quote. And I want you to just unpack it with what you're saying right now. You said the pace of change has never been so rapid, and it will never be this slow again. I mean, boy, that just nails it.
It's almost depressing when we view it through the lens of people who hate change. But what our children remind us is that change is inevitable and beautiful. And if you don't like it, watching it in a human form, watch it in the world. Watch it as winter gives way to spring and little buds and little bugs start showing up, man. And then these leaves start blooming. And life is all about change and evolution. And that's a positive thing. So listen, indeed, with technology, it has never, ever been this fast.
All right, so two more things we can do.
But it's also never going to go this slow again. So rather than hiding from it, man, embrace it. The second thing is this. My family and I, early in this pandemic, watched a show called Groundhog Day. So I got 4 little kids at home, man, and part of it is about learning and getting better and having fun as a family and playing Monopoly, but part of it is just about chilling, man. So we're using this time to come together. And a lot of people on social media are referring to their experience for the last 62 days as Groundhog Day. But they, in doing so, are missing what took place in that movie. Bill Murray, or as they call him in the movie, Phil Connors. Phil is a weatherman from, I think, Pittsburgh or Philadelphia. Man, he hates life. He hates his job. He hates it all. And he's stuck now in this little town somewhere in Pennsylvania. He hates it all. And he keeps living the same day. But halfway through that movie, rather than complaining, he starts getting better. He starts embracing the day. Phil Connors learns French. He doesn't passively endure the day. He learns something new. He learns French. He learns how to become a classically trained pianist. He learns how to ballroom dance. He learns how to become an ice sculptor. Phil Connors learns when a 12-year-old kid is going to fall from a tree so he can be there to catch him. Phil learns when a guy's going to choke in a restaurant so he can save his life. Phil learns the name of every single person in the town and what turns them on and off so he can serve them well. Phil Connors learns how to do that day well, and in doing so becomes a far better version of himself. So my friends, you are living Groundhog Day, and you can yawn your way through it, you can curse your way through it, and you can wait for it to change. Or you can become better. And I am begging you to become better. And the final piece is this: when we return to normal, not if, when we return to the new normal, let us hope and pray we don't return with the exact same mindset that we entered into this pandemic in late February. If you are doing life the same after COVID-19 goes away, you miss the chance of a lifetime to radically reinvent yourself as a human being, as a faith follower, as a servant, as a son, as a daughter, as a leader in life. So let this experience redeem you. Let it make you better. Use this experience not to complain about what's wrong, but to make your life more right.
Excellent. I've just a couple more questions, John. I'm going to let you go. I want to ask you about the book, and I probably have several answers of my own to this question about your new book, In Awe. But asking you, if you had to say, what is the immediate benefit? I mean, when somebody sits down, because I know what I believe, but when somebody sits down and begins to read this or listens to it on audio, and, we typically, when we start a book, we may read a couple of chapters, chapter and a half, 3 chapters. So when they first sit down and do this, when they stand up, what is their immediate thought? What is their immediate, because I believe there is a quick change that takes place with this book.
So the book was written as John O'Leary was traveling first class, all these big cities, big conferences, speaking though to an organization and to individuals that seemed kind of bored by their lives. They seemed kind of to be enduring the monotony and the misery of each day. And I would leave these big events, Andy, step into a school building and see these little kids whose hands would immediately pop up. They did something really weird. I don't know. You don't see it as frequently with adults. They would smile. They would look into your eyes. They would turn to their neighbors and share. And then they would do something radical, man. When the class ended, they would skip down the hallway. They would not walk. They would not meander. They would not curse and shrug their shoulders and walk back into the misery of their next class. They skipped forward into life. And I would watch this take place again and again and again and again, the gap between how we adults show up and how a child shows up. And I said, dang it, man, what is it they have? Why do we lose it? And how do we return to it? If we did return to it, how might our lives and our businesses look going forward? So that's why I wrote In Awe. And here it is now spreading in the midst of a pandemic and into a recession. And so you asked the question, let me give you the most concise answer I can give you, what you will get. I had a business meeting 4 weeks ago where I shared with our entire organization that 94% of our future revenue had been cut. So if we, 100% is top line revenue, we lost in the past 5 weeks 94% of future revenues. So we're struggling.
Hey, you and me, all the speaking's canceled. Then Amazon, I got you.
So what do you do with that? So we're gonna have a later on meeting that afternoon, and it's just, man, the fire is burning, man. The place is on fire, and there's no reason for hope. So I leave that first half of the meeting. I come home for my lunch with my kids, and as I pull into the house, it's 54 degrees in St. Louis, Missouri. Okay, that's in Alabama. That's freezing, man. But up here, it's middle. 54 degrees. I got 2 kids in the front yard wearing swimming suits, and they are running through a sprinkler. When
my
I come
gosh.
through, man, they run over to my car in their swimsuits with these big, obnoxious grins on their face. The world is falling. O'Leary's business is burning. 94% of revenue is gone. The pandemic is spreading. It's 54 degrees, cruddy outside, and my kids are dancing in a sprinkler. So what do you get out of in awe? You get the reminder that it's not as bad as it seems, that hope and optimism still play, and that you live into the thoughts that you have for yourself. If you think that it's dire and that you're doomed, you're right. You're going to prove that out over the course of time. If you choose instead to get the swimsuit on, to dance into the day, and you start thinking about the pandemic with a different lens, you will see opportunity that before the pandemic was not available to you. And you will be able to prove during this time, not only did you weather this storm, but you became far better because of it. So that's a short story in what you're going to get in this book, but I unpack what they do, the senses they have, why kids have them, what they can do for us adults, and how we can step into it practically every single day of our lives.
John, we can order this book right now, right? I mean, we could pre-order this book and it'll be delivered next week.
Well, it's good. Yeah, I mean, it comes out tomorrow.
Or it's delivered this week. It's delivered. Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, order it now. The bottom line is, go where would you prefer we go?
So I'll give you a couple choices. One is our website. It's called readinawe.com. Readinawe.com. And on that site, not only can you order the book, but there's also a little place where you can take a 21-day challenge. And I want to just drip love into you and encouragement and hope into you every day for 21 days. So take the challenge, get the book. And one other thing to encourage you to get the book now. Man, listen, my business is on fire too. And yet in my dad's life, I've seen a man who's been generous when the sun was shining on him. And over the last 31 years dealing with Parkinson's disease, he's lost everything, quite literally everything. And he remains the most generous guy I know. And Andy, I wanted my kids to see generosity during this time. Not only to see their dad, wow, dad was really good when he had money. I wanted them to see dad who was really good when he had nothing.
Right.
And so I'm giving away 100% of the royalties for all pre-sales and for the entire first week of sales into an organization that I love, that I'm active in, called Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Sure.
I have needs right now in our household, but I haven't gone hungry ever. There are kids that we serve at Big Brothers Big Sisters that go to school to eat. They learn, no doubt about it. But man, they are there for breakfast and lunch. They're there for the smiles they get and for the safety they get when they are at school. And they've lost a lot of that right now. And so I know of no organization serving these kids better than Big Brothers Big Sisters. That's why 100% of our sales are going this week to Big Brothers Big Sisters. I want to not only teach us how to live like a child, I want to show my kids what it looks like to be radically generous during a time when it's easier to build a high wall around you.
Yeah. You can choose, guys. You can choose. Life does not have to be the greatest it ever was. You know how sometimes you look at your kids and you go, you just have no idea. This is the best time of your life. It doesn't really have to be. That's what John's saying. It doesn't really have to be. You can take what you were as a child, take what you learned as a child, and improve upon it. You can exaggerate it. You can have fun with it. Use what you learned as a child and become, again, in awe of your life. In Awe is the book by Penguin Random House. John O'Leary is the author. My suggestion is order a couple of them. This is something you're going to want to give away. And so go ahead and order a couple of them now. And John, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it so much. And I just can't wait to see you again.
Andy, I do what I do professionally because I saw a guy talking about the butterfly effect. And I don't remember his name, man, but I saw this guy who was energized, and I saw joy in him, but then they would show this crowd, and I was lucky enough to be in that crowd a couple times. And I saw joy in the ladies and gentlemen I was seated next to and in my own heart. And I figured if that guy can do it with what he's been through, maybe I can do something too someday. And so I've looked up to you, respected you, admired you from afar. And to think professionally we're peers, we're colleagues, and we love each other as friends, dude, it's an awesome blessing for me. So thank you for being my friend and for being one of my role models.
Well, thank you. You're one of the people that I guess I am most honored to know. I tell your story all the time. I mean, we sit around at tables sometime, at dinner, and I'll say, okay, let me tell you about it. And so anyway, I appreciate you, John. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Thank you, Andy.
Bye-bye. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. You guys, where do you seek wisdom? Allow me to suggest wisdomharbor.com. That's wisdom, H-A-R-B-O-U-R, harbor with an O-U-R. Go there now. There's several docks that are open, and there's the 30-day free trial. So many people all over the country are joining this thing. It's a blast. There's so many different docks, so many different things your family, your business, your schools will benefit from as wisdomharbor.com, H-A-R-B-O-U-R. And, ladies and gentlemen, if you appreciate the podcast, I'd appreciate you going to iTunes and giving us a nice review, like 10, 12, 15, 42 stars. You probably only give us 5, but we would appreciate that. And you can only review it one time, a particular podcast on iTunes one time. And so if you have done it, don't cheat. Don't go back and try to give them a different name. It won't work. So, but if you haven't done it, please make today your day. And, man, that was awesome with John. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing the mental energy I have, tiny bit though it is, for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Thank you, John O'Leary. Until next week, smile while you talk. For God's sake, don't breathe anybody else's air until this whole thing's over, but be sure you have a positive answer to the question, how's it going? And so until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Street Corn provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by thecoastalcorral.com. At thecoastalcorral.com, we've already had it up to here. Well, you can't see where our hands are, but they're above our heads. And we've had it up to there with the flocks and droves of beach-hungry city tourists who have run to the beaches like it's a race to finish vacation first. Be nice when you're visitors on the coast, because the Coastal Corral is an actual place committed to rounding up the rule breakers, the naysayers, the chair inflators, the drunk on the beach people, and the fish filleters who just can't keep themselves, friends, or family in line. Those who have been corralled get a quick drive north to the town of Loxley, Alabama, where they spend a much-needed night in a pen with the other barnyard animals. If you or someone you know spots a group of these knuckleheads, give us a call, and the Coastal Corral will be opened for them. Roundup happening nightly. That's thecoastalcorral.com.